Welcome to episode 4 of the Digital Government Excellence Symposium. The team here at PayIt sincerely appreciates that you've taken some time out of your busy schedule to spend with us. And for those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Dawn Schrum and I lead product marketing here at PayIt. I'm incredibly excited to have two impressive women joining us today who have spent a combined decades improving the speed of tax collection and the overall experience for their residents. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you haven't noticed already, your microphone's muted. We only do this to try to make sure we have a seamless experience. We do want to hear from you throughout this event. So please make sure you're using the Q&A module to the right side of your interface to ask us any questions you have throughout the event. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers, beginning with Whitney Miller, who's led many government initiatives throughout her career, having served as the Director of Collection in Jackson County, Missouri, prior to her current role as the Chief Deputy County Counselor. We also have Maria Walls, who's been the elected Treasurer of Beaufort County, South Carolina since 2015, after serving 4 years as Deputy Treasurer. We're going to kick off by hearing from Maria talk a little bit about her project and the lessons learned. So let's take it away.
I am Maria Walls, and I am the Treasurer in Beaufort County, South Carolina. We are just under 200,000 full-time residents, and we are experiencing a massive amount of growth. Beaufort County itself is just under 1,000 square miles, but interestingly enough, 40% of our county is actually water. So a great deal of our community and our everyday lives are spent in and around our waterways, which are so important to what makes Beaufort County so great. We collect not just taxes on behalf of county government, but our school district, our town governments, and our public service districts and other government entities in the county. Once they're collected, we're also responsible for managing all the county's bank accounts and any investments that will be done with those public funds. When the Treasurer's Office collects a tax dollar, it's going to be used in a lot of different ways. Operating our schools, going into the classrooms, paying our teachers, our first responders. It's going to include our law enforcement, our police officers, our fire departments, our emergency management personnel. It goes towards our parks and leisure, to child enrichment programs, camps, things that are going to engage and enhance our community in the way that we live in this beautiful place. My Beaufort County is our customers' one-stop location to pay and handle all things property taxes.
I'm a very forward-thinking leader. I believe that the role of leaders, particularly in government, is that our voters, in my case, selected me to think of the problems tomorrow that might come up and solve them today before they're a problem. I mean, that's the job of a leader. And then we lead through the challenges that surprise us. But a lot of things shouldn't be a surprise. And the prevalence of technology and the advances that we've all seen in our everyday life should not be absent from government services. But unfortunately, back then, they were. We had a very antiquated website that, I mean, if you tried to pay online, even I was struggling with it. You know, you're doing like the little pinch on your phone and making sure you did it correctly. I was too nervous to pay my own taxes using that website because it was so not friendly in any way. So we began looking for a solution to this problem and to this lack of service. And the first thing that I'd like to share with everyone watching is Whitney kind of mentioned it, that it is hard to change. It's hard to, like the poll has reflected, it's hard to advance technology. Everybody wants something better when you ask them, do you want a better experience? Yes. Do you want better services? Yes. But then when you ask them if they want change, the predominant response is no, whether through their words or their actions. And I actually think that's the challenge in what we as government leaders are trying to accomplish. It's not the technology upgrade. It's the people upgrade. It's the adoption and the accepting of change and the buying into it. we had an easier time of that because our software was so antiquated. Like there was nothing good about it that you could even hang on to. So I was very open about needing a solution that, frankly, I didn't have an answer for. So I had a problem without an answer. And because I don't mind, I have that kind of personality where I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you what I'm struggling with, because you don't know who knows something you don't. That's my biggest fear as a leader, that I am going to miss something simply because I didn't know it. And the only way to expand your knowledge is to make people aware that you're seeking knowledge. So there were various people that I'd come in contact with that were in our community that I'd ask them, hey, I'm just putting it out there. I'm looking for this. I have this problem. I'm looking for this. And it was coincidental that PayIt submitted a proposal for our RFP, but I happened to come in contact with an acquaintance who is familiar with them. And so that was super helpful going into the RFP process back in 2017.
Many of our property owners have multiple property tax accounts, whether it's for a vehicle or a boat or their home or their business. They can put all of their property tax matters in one location, manage their bills, get electronic notification that they're due, and pay online, get their receipt, one easy place. Before My Beaufort County, we didn't have a great online payment option. It was not user-friendly, it was slow, it was antiquated. It didn't entice a user to engage with it, and in fact, it turned them off. What our customers would typically end up doing was coming into the office with a paper check or taking a paper check and mailing it. Well, that all has a turnaround time to process, to deposit, to clear the bank, and then ultimately get into the county's bank accounts. But by having My Beaufort County, that turnaround time is so much faster because everything's electronic. There is no paper involved in My Beaufort County. So I would say the greatest impact that PayIt has had on our operations and on Beaufort County is in two different areas. So first is for our customer. Our customers are getting a great user experience that is simple, straightforward, easy to manage. It's really built with our customers in mind. But then also on our operations, because our customers are paying online. So we're getting the money faster into the county's accounts, which is allowing us to invest it faster. So we know that we're going to get a payment, but how quickly we get that payment really does affect our operations in a positive way when that's done faster. And that's exactly what our relationship with PayIt has allowed us to do.
I didn't do the entire implementation myself. I don't manage the relationship entirely myself. I don't process the information entirely myself. So you need to make sure that you are working on relationship with your team so that they trust you to accept the change that will come with advancing the technology. Because if they do, you're going to get through any issue that's going to come up, because it is. Nothing's perfect. No software, no vendor, no client. There's no such thing as perfection. And when you've worked to establish relationship, vision, mission, core values to create your team culture, they're going to trust you leading them through that. And they're going to trust each other, which is going to have a greater outcome than what you would have had otherwise. So we implemented, I think we went live in 2017. So we signed the contract. It seems like it was fast, but it felt like a lot. Now, if we want to fast forward to today, it's been phenomenal what we have accomplished and been able to accomplish because we solved today's problems yesterday. Now, post-COVID, because I want to hope and think that that's the world we are in right now. Post-COVID, we're growing exponentially. We were growing before, let's say 6% every year pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we're growing not just 6%, but a higher growth rate every single year. Now, as a customer-facing office, that means that we have more customers, right? Our tax base is expanding. The population is expanding. And we have not had to add more staff to our front line. These are our team members who are answering questions. They're taking payments over the counter. They're answering phone calls, emails, chat. So that is where we would feel the pain, so to speak, of this growth. And while we're seeing the growth, we have been able to manage it with the staff we have, truly because of e-billing and My Beaufort County. You can see in the slide how much we've saved, what we've collected in our lifetime relationship, the transaction counts, and you can see it right there. There was a bump in that 2020, 2021 year, but that hasn't stopped. And again, I think it's indicative of the quality of the user experience. And I'll kind of end with this. We had an internal meeting with some of our teammates and support staff at PayIt, and I said, I know people would use, all these new residents would use My Beaufort County. I bet they just don't know about it, because our expectations as the public, that's all of us, me too, is so low for government. Our standards are so low that no one expects exceptionalism when they think of government. And I said, I bet they're new residents and they're getting a paper bill and they see on there they can pay online. And you know what? I bet then they go online and realize, wow, this is so amazing, that then they sign up for e-billing. How can we capture them from the beginning, not after, from the beginning? And our client rep, Debbie Brandon, she messaged me a few weeks ago and says, we just had the funniest feedback. And it was a new resident who literally said exactly what I had been saying in our meetings. They were not expecting such a great experience that was simple and easy to use. And it's been outstanding. There's no downside. And at the end of the day, we're here to work. And I tell my team this all the time. Where do you drive to or log into? You're going to work. Well, work by its very nature requires effort and struggle and difficulty, or else we wouldn't have a job. So let's choose to work on the best thing, divert our energy to the best thing for our taxpayers. And for us, that's been My Beaufort County.
Whitney, would love to hear you just share a little bit about your journey and some of the results you've achieved.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. As Dawn shared, my name is Whitney Miller. I'm the Director of Collection for Jackson County, Missouri, previously from the legal department, and joined the collections office about 5 years ago. And for those who don't know, Jackson County is in Kansas City, Missouri. So we are the second largest city in the state. And we are the home of the Super Bowl winning Chiefs. And just some background on where we're from, because I'm proud of it. We're also the home of the first stadium built exclusively for a professional women's sports team with the KC Current. So on our riverfront, we are building an 11,000 person stadium. So that's something that we in Kansas City are very proud of. But a little bit more about taxes in Jackson County. As Dawn shared, we have just over 700,000 residents in Jackson County. We now collect over $1.3 billion per year in taxes. We've had some increase there over about 80 taxing jurisdictions, and that includes real property, individual personal property, business personal property. And here in Missouri, all taxes are due on December 31st of each year. I know that changes state by state, but that deadline alone can present its own challenges, both for us and our wonderful support team at PayIt, because it tends to mean at least somebody on the team can't spend their holidays doing the things they want to be doing. So anyone who has a December 31st deadline probably understands that burden. As far as how we got here with what we do in our relationship with PayIt, as I said, I started my role in 2018. And very shortly after I started, I knew it was a priority for me to improve our online offerings. It's not a resource that I felt we were really utilizing adequately, and that certainly only increased with the start of COVID, but even well before COVID, I felt strongly that we weren't utilizing our online offerings for taxpayers. And I can't remember if I reached out to PayIt or if PayIt reached out to me, to be completely honest, but it was shortly after that we began engaging in conversations about what we could do together to make that an opportunity that would benefit, hopefully, the taxpayers and the county. So some things that led to my wanting to prioritize that. We have an incredibly antiquated tax software system. I know a lot of other municipalities are in the same boat. We're actually in the process of upgrading that software now over the course of the next 1.5 to 2 years. But at the time we went live with PayIt, we were still fully on our old software and had not even started any integration. So that meant limited interface options. We had very limited payment options and what cards and things we would accept. It was an antiquated search function with asterisks, and you had to have the exact right search term, which wasn't helpful for taxpayers. There was no mobile friendly option. There was no ability to save your data year over year. The security was not where I felt it should be. So there were really a lot of reasons why this quickly became a priority to me. And then the security concerns that I had led me to move very quickly. So we actually did, I want to say, about a 60 or a 90-day implementation. It felt very quick compared to a lot of my implementations with other vendors. And I was very pleased with the level of collaboration that went into that process. And as far as how that implementation worked, what we chose to do, because I felt a certain sense of urgency to be ready to go by my first full billing season, was to move forward with the implementation when it was, as close to perfect as we felt like we could get at that point, and then use, as Dawn shared, really use the user experience and feedback to make some further iterations from that point. And that's what we did. So we went live. We collected a lot of great feedback from our stakeholders and from our users and our elected officials, and then went back and iterated some of that after we went live. And that really worked quite well for us. The challenges that we faced in that, certainly there were plenty. One large challenge, and it sounds like this is a challenge for a lot of folks or a lot of clients, is that our software was very old, and it's just difficult to integrate any vendor with such old software. And one thing that was a big priority for us in Jackson County is having a live feed, so a live environment where someone could pay their taxes. Here in Missouri, you have to pay your taxes and take that receipt to the Department of Motor Vehicles and show them that to be able to register your car. And a lot of people expect to be able to wait in line at the DMV, pay their taxes from their phone, have that receipt on their phone, and 10 minutes later show it to someone at the DMV so they can register. So that live payment system was really very important to us, and we were glad to be able to continue that on with our partnership with PayIt. So the old software was a challenge, but what I thought was a larger challenge was making sure we had buy-in from all of the necessary entities, because change is just very hard for people. It's hard for everyone. It's very hard for public figures and elected officials when they don't know what to expect. It's difficult for staff who have been here in our office for a long time and have always known one thing to then change and show them something different. It's a challenge. And we found it was very difficult for taxpayers too, they'd looked at the same awful website to pay their taxes for so long. And even though it was terrible, it was what they knew. So there was certainly a certain amount of working to get that buy-in, because I think that was so critical. And some things we did to make that work. I did group one-on-one trainings with all of our elected officials and their staff, so that they understood how the product worked. They could share with their constituents how it worked. My goal was that all of the legislative aides would be able to talk to a constituent and walk them through the process if they needed to. Obviously, we did training with all of our staff, and we also tried to do training with the public. We did Facebook Lives with the county executive, and I paid my taxes on a Facebook Live so that people could see. I think maybe we created a fake account. I can't remember for sure. It's been a while, but I paid something on Facebook Live. And then we added videos to the website walking through exactly how to do it. We did local media interviews where we showed the platform to folks so they would know what it looked like. So really doing our best to sell that change to the public was one of our biggest challenges and one of our biggest goals. And I think PayIt was really tremendously helpful with that too, because their guidance with marketing and communication was just invaluable and continues to be. So, my thought with moving forward with this was that step one is creating a great product. And we did that, you did that, PayIt did that. But I think step two is selling that product, because especially in our more rural areas, you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't convince people to use it, it's not worth anyone's time. So our goal has always been to make it as user-friendly for folks as possible, to make it as available to people as possible. So we've done that through email blasts, social media, print media, handouts. Like I said, went on the local news. Something I'm hoping to do in the future is to collaborate with our local libraries and other county buildings to have some print media with QR codes, and just finding places in our community where we know people are, where we know there's a diverse population who might or might not know about the ability to pay online or how convenient it is. Another thing we did in an effort to create that early buy-in from taxpayers is that we covered the fees for the last 3 years, I believe. So, and we did that all through COVID in an effort to give as many people as possible the opportunity to not come into our buildings. So we covered all transaction fees and all ACH fees. I believe we didn't cover credit card fees, but that's one thing that we did as a county to try and encourage some early buy-in from folks, and then hopefully also during COVID, keep crowds as low as we could. We saw a lot of benefits early on and continue to see a lot of benefits. I think I know the taxpayers appreciate the user-friendly interface. I've gotten a number of friends and colleagues that have emailed me saying how much easier and better their experience is since we have the mobile-friendly option, and I always love hearing that. Also, the ability to save your payment information year to year, I think everyone appreciates, because I know I'll call myself a millennial, having to, get my wallet out and get my card always feels like such a hassle. And I really appreciate the ability to just have something saved year over year. And I know a lot of other folks appreciate that too. For the county, the benefits, we've benefited from reduced lines. Also, PayIt has handled our call center volumes, which is, especially at the end of the year, incredibly helpful. And I believe that the call center and the help center online have reduced our walk-in volume. And for the taxing jurisdictions, they actually really have a huge benefit, because the number of people who pay early has increased hundredfold. So I think they get much more money much earlier because of our increased online participation. Just a few future things that we're working on that we're excited about. We're going to be adding PayIt for point of sale payments so that you'll have the exact same interface and fee structure for point of sale as we have for our online payment. And then soon, hopefully, we will be adding phone payments as well with a Spanish option. We've been really trying to find ways to better cater to our Spanish-speaking constituency. And one way I think we can do that is to give a pay-by-phone option that has a Spanish translation. So we're excited to add those features in the coming year. I thought I'd end with just a little success story. We implemented in 2019, as I said, and everything really went pretty smoothly. And everything was great. But then in 2020, we had the exact same process, also went smoothly, but the difference was we sent out a single email to all registered users that just said your taxes are available for payment and here's the link to pay. And it was like a 1,500% increase in the number of people that paid that day. I mean, $5 million more in October than we had had the year before. So it's just really that small thing of just letting people know that they were ready so they didn't have to wait for that paper bill made a huge impact on our early payments. So that was really a big win for us.
Wow, those were great lessons learned for sure. Thank you so much to both Whitney and Maria, and we're so grateful to have Whitney back in our studio today to answer some questions. So welcome back, Whitney.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, just off the bat, we're in the throes of property tax season. So I think this topic, for a lot of people are in property tax season. I hope you sleep better at night knowing that you have this down. Are you sleeping better? That's my first question.
I am. It's sort of old hat now, fortunately.
Oh, good. I love to hear that. To kick things off, and just a reminder I know we've gotten a couple questions in on the chat already, but you can use that question and answer on the side of your screen to submit questions while we go through here. But I'll start with the ones we have so far. Maria mentioned the importance of collecting taxes efficiently to support essential services. Considering Jackson County's significant tax revenue that you referenced, how critical is the speed of tax collection for you? And are there specific services or initiatives that have, benefited from a faster turnover of that revenue?
Sure, absolutely. As I said in the presentation previously, the opening up of the online bills prior to paper bills being received really increased tremendously the amount of revenue that we generated in October as opposed to November and December. Additionally, the increase in people paying online, as it was stated previously, is instant revenue for us as opposed to those paper checks that we were processing. And we do still process some of those, but when we get, especially those payments received right at the end of the year, those checks might not be processed previously in the county until January or February, depending on staffing, because we would get tens of thousands and have a very small staff for that type of work. So getting that processed the day of payment rather than 30 or 60 days later is a huge win for the taxing jurisdictions. And it's also a huge win for the taxpayers who might have had to wait 30 days for their payment to clear and show online, as opposed to being able to see that proof of payment within minutes or less of making that payment. Really, our school districts are probably the biggest beneficiary of that. This is a time where they are always in need of additional funds, and they receive significantly more funding in October, right around much closer to the start of the school year, that they would have received probably in January previously.
Oh, interesting. That's great. Great. Well, thank you for that. It's really evident that, a modern user experience is helpful to your residents. Can you talk about how prioritizing that and implementing this solution has helped improve your relationship with residents? And if you have anything specific to relating to younger residents that are those digital natives that kind of come to expect this?
Sure. I think probably the biggest amount of feedback we've gotten is in the ability to save payment information and save receipts. I know for a lot of folks, especially younger folks, there's an expectation now that they'll be able to pull up a bill and pay it instantly, not have to go find a wallet or go find a purse, dig out a card. I know for myself, I can see that I owe a bill, but the moment I have to stop what I'm doing and go find something, I'm going to put that task aside and then remember it 2 weeks from now when it's due, or 2 months from now when it's due. Whereas if your payment information is saved right there and it's just at the click of a keypad, then you are much more willing and able to do that payment immediately. So I think the best feedback we've gotten is on the ability to save that payment information, and then also having your receipts readily available to you. In Missouri, we have to go to the DMV to register our vehicles. I know that's fairly common. And now being able to just show on the phone that our taxes are paid is really a convenience to not having to dig out that paper receipt that we might have received 6 months ago.
Well, that's great. You shared some examples about doing training on Facebook and different ways you rolled out the platform. It just got me thinking about trust being so paramount. Whenever our residents are engaging with us, we want to make sure they trust the information is accurate and they're comfortable with the experience. Can you talk a little bit about how you took that into account, rolling out the solution, and how, if this has helped improve trust, or how you've made sure that it stays trusted to people as they're moving from their old way of doing things to this online experience?
Yes, absolutely. I think what we found, and it continues to be true, is trust is really, it's obviously important, and it's built when communication is really effective and when it's consistent. So one thing that was really important to us was to really get buy-in and train our own internal staff, our elected officials and their staff, anyone who is really in direct communication with constituents, to make sure that they believe in the product, that they have trust in the product, and that they understand how it works so they can share that with the folks they are helping. Because I think you really need, to the extent you have the ability, you need the entire organization to be on board promoting this new product, promoting this platform, and not doing anything that might undermine the trust in the community. So that was really helpful for us to be able to do. We did one-on-one trainings with a lot of the legislators and their staff, and with our elected officials, with our phone bank staff, everyone that might have direct contact with constituents. And then we also did the local morning news circuit, which I think really helped, just sharing the security information that might cause any concern for folks who are hesitant to do online payments. So I think a combination of those things really helped to establish that trust. And now we've seen increases each year since 2018 in the utilization of the platform.
Yeah, those are great examples. Those are awesome. Let's talk about the ability to make enhancements and kind of that partnership. I know we have a partnership. You mentioned you've got upcoming features. I know some of these, like the point of sale payments, so payments in the office that's tied to the same back end as the online system, and Spanish language options. How do you think about making enhancements, and how do you think the ability to do this enhances the solution for your residents?
Sure. So we have instituted the PayIt, the pay in person structure. So that has gone into place, and we've instituted the pay by phone with Spanish. So I think it's important for us to really consider who is underserved, who isn't utilizing the process, and what boundaries we can remove to assist them in using that process. So I know in Jackson County, we had every day we were getting people calling asking if they could pay by phone. A lot of the senior population feels more comfortable with payment by phone, and not offering that seemed to be a barrier to them not wanting to come in and provide that check. And we really weren't providing our best options to our Spanish speaking population. So those were two areas where we really wanted to, increase the opportunities, increase that trust. So we've already seen some success in our pay by phone option and in just having that consistency with those who are paying in person. We do have a general, or I have a general principle that I don't like to change too much at one time, because it's hard to determine kind of what your return is if everything changes in 1 year. So we try to implement 1 or 2 new features per billing cycle, see what we think is going to give us our best return on investment, so to speak, as far as taxpayer participation, so that we can really look at those things individually and see where we're seeing successes, where maybe we still need to make some tweaks to see more success.
Oh, that's great. You kind of happened to answer part of this question already, but one that got submitted while we were talking was, what methods you've been using to seek feedback on an ongoing basis. And it sounds like there's some direct feedback you're getting by phone or in the office. Are there any other examples you can share about how you're soliciting that feedback or how you're prioritizing it when you're figuring out what to implement each year?
Sure. We are blessed with taxpayers who never hesitate to provide us their feedback. So getting that feedback is rarely too difficult. We have phone bank, we have an active social media presence that allows for those comments. Our legislators and our executive get lots of phone calls and emails and pass those on to us. So we organically have a pretty good idea of where our roadblocks are, where our gaps are, and then what features people are really enjoying.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to hear how this season goes with, even more months of data on the pay by phone and the Spanish options. That's great to hear that they're already being utilized. That's the best scenario, right? Well, those are all the questions we had today. I just want to thank you again so much for sharing so much information. Just for those on the line, if you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to put into chat, email us, reach out to us. We'll make sure they get answered, and we'll also share a recording of this episode. And we're also going to be soliciting your feedback as well. So stay tuned after this closes, so you'll have a link to do that. But thanks again, Whitney. We'll talk soon. Everyone have a great tax season.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.